Okay, so get this. We're diving deep into the EU and their push for a circular economy, especially in textiles. I mean, the stuff they're doing is going to cause some serious waves.
And the mountain of info you've given us. Policy docs, impact studies, even stories about companies already living and breathing these principles. It's like you've got front row seats to a major economic shift.
You got it. And that's what we're all about here. But before we get into the weeds of rules and trailblazing companies, let's take a step back. Got to understand the why behind this massive undertaking.
Well, it all begins with the European Green Deal. And this isn't just some environmental afterthought. This is a sweeping initiative with a bold goal, making the entire EU climate neutral by 2050.
Climate neutral by 2050? Whoa, that's right around the corner. How does the circular economy fit into this ambitious goal?
It's the foundation. You see the traditional linear economy. Make waste. It's just not sustainable. The EU gets this. And they see the circular economy, where we keep resources in use for as long as possible, as the solution.
So instead of resources going in a straight line from production to disposal, they're saying, let's loop them back around.
Exactly. It's about shifting from a linear to a more cyclical model.
Makes sense. But this whole circular economy thing, it's a pretty big concept. What are some of the key strategies the EU is using to make it a reality?
They've got a whole arsenal of strategies. But two of the heavy hitters are the Circular Economy Action Plan and the EU Textile Strategy.
Okay, let's break those down a bit. First up, the Circular Economy Action Plan.
This is like the EU's master plan for achieving a circular economy across all sectors.
And it's been around for a while, right?
It has, but they've been updating it regularly to address emerging challenges and opportunities.
What are some of the recent updates they've made?
Well, one major focus is tackling plastic pollution, which we all know is a huge problem. They're also working on making sustainable products the norm, rather than the exception.
So making it easier for consumers to make eco-friendly choices without even thinking about it.
Exactly. It's about embedding sustainability into the very fabric of the market.
And what about the EU Textile Strategy?
This one's laser focused on the textile industry, which, as we know, is a major culprit when it comes to environmental damage.
Yeah, fast fashion alone produces a ton of waste.
Absolutely. So the EU Textile Strategy sets out to tackle that head-on, with a strong emphasis on durability, repairability, and finding ways to deal with all that textile waste.
So it's about making clothes that last longer, can be fixed easily, and don't just end up in a landfill.
Precisely. It's about making the textile industry more sustainable from start to finish.
All of this is super important, obviously, but for someone who might be thinking, okay, the EU is going green, that's great, but what does it have to do with me? What would you say?
This is about more than just the EU going green. It's about addressing some of the most pressing global challenges we face.
Like what?
Well, for starters, resource scarcity. We're using up the planet's resources at an alarming rate. And the linear economy is a big driver of that.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then there's the environmental impact. Pollution, climate change, biodiversity loss. These are all connected to the way we produce and consume goods.
So the circular economy is a way to address those issues.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Consumers are becoming increasingly aware of these issues, and they're demanding more sustainable options.
So it's not just about saving the planet, it's also about meeting the changing demands of consumers.
Exactly. And the EU, by taking the lead in this transition, is positioning itself as a global leader in sustainability, which could have economic benefits down the line.
So it's a win-win for the planet and the economy.
In theory, yes. Of course, the real test will be in the implementation.
Which is what we'll be diving into next. We'll be back in a moment to explore how these grand visions are translating into concrete actions. And trust me, the EU is not shying away from bold moves. Okay, so the EU is going all in on this circular economy vision. But how are they actually making it happen? It seems like a huge undertaking.
It is, and they're tackling it from all sides. But one of the biggest game changers is legislation. And in the world of sustainable products, the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, or ESPR for short. That's a big one.
ESPR, this is the regulation that just came out, right? I got to admit, I kind of skimmed over it in the documents. But hearing you say game changer, now my ears are perked up.
And for good reason. It's not just about slapping an eco-friendly label on existing products. It's about rethinking how products are designed from the ground up. The ESPR lays down the law on durability, repairability, even down to whether you can get spare parts. All these things make a product last longer and shrink its environmental footprint.
So instead of that cheap coffee maker I bought that broke after a year,
Yeah.
with the ESPR, they'd have to design it to last longer and it'd be easier to fix.
Exactly. It's about ditching that designed obsolescence we're so used to. And it's not just gadgets. ESPR covers a ton of products, and this is where it gets really interesting. It could have a ripple effect across industries, pushing for a system-wide shift towards sustainability.
Wow. I didn't realize how broad ESPR is. Seems like it could impact so many things. But what happens when a product does finally bite the dust? That's a huge chunk of the waste problem, especially with textiles.
You're right, and the EU's got an answer for that too. Starting in 2025, get ready for extended producer responsibility for textiles. This means textile companies in the EU are on the hook for their products, even after people are done with them.
No more washing their hands of it once it leaves the factory. This is a big deal, especially for fast fashion, which is all about that quick turnaround, low-cost, disposable model, right?
Absolutely. This regulation throws a wrench in that model.
Yeah.
By making producers responsible for what happens to their products at the end of life, it pushes them to design for recyclability and to invest in new recycling technologies. We're already seeing companies like Advanced Clothing Solutions stepping up. They're teaming up with brands like the North Face and Nudie Jeans to make clothes last longer through repair rental and cutting-edge recycling.
It's like giving those old jeans a new lease on life. So we've got ESPR shaking up product design, and EPR making sure companies own up to what happens to their products. But let's be real for a second. There were always companies looking for loopholes or trying to greenwash their products.
Yeah.
Is the EU doing anything about that?
They are. The EU is cracking down on misleading environmental claims. They want to make sure consumers can trust what they're being told. New rules are coming in to make sure companies can back up their sustainability claims with hard data and verifiable information.
So no more slapping a green leaf on something and calling it a day. Sounds like companies will actually have to walk the walk. But with all these rules and potential problems, are there any shining examples of companies that are killing it in this circular economy?
Absolutely. One company that comes to mind is EconYL. They've figured out how to close the loop on a material that's notoriously hard to recycle, nylon.
Nylon. That's in everything from clothes and swimsuits to carpets and fishing nets. What's EconYL's secret?
They've developed an amazing process. They regenerate nylon from waste materials, like those old fishing nets you mentioned, which are a huge source of ocean pollution. They take that weight, break it down to its basic building blocks, and use that to create brand new, high-quality nylon yarn. It's just as good as virgin nylon.
Wow. So they're literally turning trash into treasure. And you said it's actually high-quality nylon, so it's not like they're sacrificing performance.
Not at all. In fact, lots of big-name fashion brands, swimwear companies, even car manufacturers are using EconYL in their products. It just goes to show that sustainability and performance can go hand in hand.
EconYL's story is really inspiring. It proves that this circular economy isn't just some pipe dream. But what about the human side of all this? We've talked about rules and companies, but creating a truly circular economy, that takes a huge mindset shift, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like we can't expect, I don't know, like just regulations and innovative companies to just magically create a circular economy on their own. There's got to be a deeper change in how we think about business and leadership, right?
You've hit the nail on the head. The EU regulations are a strong foundation. But a truly circular economy needs more than that. It needs a cultural shift towards what's called regenerative leadership.
Regenerative leadership. Okay, I like the sound of it, but I gotta be honest, I'm not entirely sure what that means. It's about going beyond just doing less harm. Regenerative leadership in fashion means actively working to restore and improve the environment and social systems. It's about the big picture, understanding that a healthy planet and a healthy business go hand in hand.
So it's like shifting from just playing defense to actually going on the offense. Instead of minimizing the negative, you're trying to create a positive impact, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there are some really cool initiatives popping up that are all about growing this kind of leadership. One that really stood out to me from what you shared is called ReLead. It's based out of the Hague University of Applied Sciences.
Really?
Yeah, they're not just teaching sustainability. They're trying to give a new generation of leaders the tools and the mindset to drive this change from within the industry itself.
Okay, that's really interesting. Sounds like they're on the cutting edge, shaping the future of fashion. What are some of the things they focus on in this ReLead program?
They're tackling the problem from all angles, from using circular economy ideas in design to getting everyone in the supply chain working together And it's not just lectures and theory, they're all about hands-on projects and working with real businesses, encouraging experimentation and pushing the limits of what's possible.
Turning those ideas into action. Sounds like Relead is planting the seeds for a real cultural shift. But we've also talked about how important collaboration is. It can't just be individual companies or sectors working on their own.
Absolutely. And that's where things like the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform come in. It's this amazing hub where people from all walks of life can come together. Businesses, policymakers, researchers, NGOs, they share knowledge, brainstorm solutions, build partnerships.
Like a big brainstorming session for the circular economy.
Yeah.
I can just imagine people from all these different backgrounds realizing they're all working towards the same goal, even if their methods are different. That's powerful.
It really is. And they've got these dedicated leadership groups, each one focused on a specific sector, including one just for textiles, which, as you might remember, is coordinated by RUAC. They're really leading the charge for circularity in textiles.
So it's a multi-pronged approach. We've got the big picture stuff like the European Green Deal and regulations like ESPR. And then we've got these more grassroots efforts like Relead and the stakeholder platform, all working together to build a more circular future. It gives me hope. But are these efforts enough? Will the EU actually achieve a fully circular economy?
That's the million-dollar question, right? The changes we're seeing are huge, but we can't ignore the challenges. Implementation is a big one. These regulations are complex, and companies, especially smaller ones, are going to need to adapt.
And it's a global issue. The EU can lead the way. But for real change, these efforts need to go beyond their borders.
Exactly. But I'm still optimistic. The EU is sending a strong signal. And we're already seeing other countries taking notice. They're starting to put similar policies in place. Plus, consumers want sustainable options more than ever. And new technology is making circular solutions more and more viable.
So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when and how quickly we can make this shift happen.
Exactly. And while the big changes are underway, it's important to remember that we all play a part as consumers. Every purchase, every choice we make about how we use and dispose of things, it all sends a message.
It's about putting our money where our mouth is, supporting companies that share our values, buying things that are built to last and can be fixed, and keeping them in use for as long as possible.
Absolutely. All those little actions, they add up. When millions of people do them, it makes a difference. The road to a truly circular economy, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And it takes all of us.
Well, you've definitely given us a lot to think about today, from groundbreaking regulations to inspiring company stories. And the power we have as individuals, it's clear that this topic has huge implications. As we keep exploring this whole circular economy thing, I'm cautiously optimistic. The challenges are real, but so are the solutions. It's up to all of us to stay informed, to make conscious choices, and to help build a future where we value resources, minimize waste, and create an economy that works with our planet, not against it.
Thank you for watching and listening. We hope you found your inner peace with our podcast. Keep yourself updated and join us on our next episode. Stay safe and healthy, and have a good day. See you soon.